New day, new learning. Ciao, Maciej. How are you doing today?
Hello, my friend. I'm great. Give me something.
Oh, yes, I have something good for you today. Lately I have been chatting with several people team leads as well as people who are part of some teams. And I've been understanding that for them, doing retrospective meant sitting, looking at the board and doing a bit something that is like an extended version of a common daily, let's say in the Scrum terminology. So looking at the board, looking at the tickets and really just focusing a little bit on the task at hand. And that made me realize that maybe not everyone is aware about what really are retrospective. What are they meant for? Why are we doing them? And that's what I wanted to share with you today. So why I think it's important for people to have retrospective is to provide a space for them to reflect outside the common task that we need to run on our day-to-day. Something that I feel it's more important in this space to reflect on is the process. How do we work together? How do we interact with the people that are outside our main group of work? And this is why I wanted to share the structure that I came up and that I learned and that I kind of evolved around my ideas in these last few years and how I generally run retrospective. So the first thing I encourage people to do is create a space. And possibly this is a space that you want to be recurring. It can be around 60 to 90 minutes, and it should happen more or less around 2-3 weeks. And then it is going to depend on your team, on the context, and on the situation. If you see that there are always many topics and there is not enough to talk about it, increase the frequency of the retrospective, maybe augment the time. If you see that slowly you have less and less topic, you can reduce the cadence or maybe shorten the retrospective. You want to create a space that is safe for the people that are participating. And this is not something that you can just do. It's not an on-off button. It's something that it's going to be very influenced by your culture, by your group of people, and the way they interact each other. In general, you want people to come there and be able to say that something sucks or that they didn't like XYZ. And this is going to take time. Do not expect everyone to come into the first retro and just share whatever they have in mind. Give them the time, provide them, make them feel comfortable within this space, and make sure they feel like they can talk about what is inside them. One way I use to boost safeness and to make sure that the group is closer together is as soon as we start a retrospective, I use the check-in. And here in the description, you can find a link about a previous time where we have been speaking about what is the check-in. And then I use a celebration moment. This means that I ask the people to reflect on this last cycle, so the last 2 or 3 weeks that they're working on, and think about what they are happy about, what they want to share and celebrate with their team. Generally, I ask them to do this reflection in silence, so everyone have 1-2 minutes to think about it, write some post-it on a digital board, and then when everyone is finished, I'll ask them to make a round of the circle, so go around and everyone can share one thing with the group. And I have had multiple feedback as well as a great sense that this brings the mood very high in the group, like celebrating and being happy about what you did is a very great way of starting this meeting and making the people feel welcome. We don't celebrate enough the thing we do. We often think and are critical, but we are less taking time to enjoy and say how good we have been doing certain things. So create a space, start by checking in, start by celebrating. Now we move to the part that is more critical to the retrospective. We want the group to reflect on what is important to them. And this is another moment where I ask for people to have silent reflection. So I generally don't want anyone to speak. I'll set a 2-3 minute timer, and then I'll see if the people are not generating any more stickies on the board. Then I'll ask, I'll get the session to continue. Or if I see that there are more stickies that are generated on the board, I generally increase the time to about 1 minute. And here what I ask the group is think about what frustrated you. Think about the inefficiencies that you had in this life cycle. Have you spotted some opportunities to improve the way we work together? Or do you have something that you feel strongly that is important to share within the group? Create some stickies, put them on the board. You can also do this in a private fashion if you want, so that nobody see the stickies of others, so that people don't influence each other. I don't think this is so much important. What is important is that people have a moment to quietly reflect on what is going on. So now we have this, the group came together, everyone have reflected, we have a digital board where all the stickies about what people would like to discuss that are present. And now the next thing is I ask the group to align. I ask the group to look at the stickies, read the different stickies, and try to see if there is something that is not clear to you. And if that's the case, shot a question on the group. I generally don't use any special mechanism or format to run the conversation. I just leave it open, a few minutes. Wait a moment, don't just ask, and if you don't see a question after 10 seconds, you move on. Maybe even wait for 30, 60 seconds of silence before moving on. Make sure that everyone have read and is well aware about the stickies. Once everybody is aligned and you feel the group is ready to move on, we want to move to a voting session. So now what we want to do is make sure that you group the stickies that are similar and you agree on which one people are going to vote on. If you are doing it digitally or if you are doing it in person, find another way for people to vote on the stickies, maybe give some number to the topics. And then here, I think it's very important to do it privately. You do a voting. You generally assign 1, 2, or I prefer to use something like 3 votes. Be careful to the number of people in the group to not end up with, more stickies with the same number, but sometime it will happen. And then ask them to vote on the topic that is most important to the group to discuss. I generally favor using the group insight, so having this collective vote. But sometimes you can also break the rule and just ask somebody to go on and decide what they want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Be aware that very often when you do this, the people will tend to choose their own topic because they feel like what they bring is important. So I don't think this is good to use every time, but sometimes you can do that, and make sure that, along the retrospective session that you're going to come, you make this person rotate. If more topics are receive the same number of votes, you can use something like a dice. I have some D&D dice around to allow me to decide, which topic we go first, or which person is going to decide today among these 2 topics which one to discuss. Always ask the group if somebody strongly opposed to that topic because the other one they felt was really so urgent they wanted to discuss. So always get this back to the group. And here, as a facilitator, most of the work is done. You get the group to reflect on what is important, and you invited the group to find the topic that they want to actually discuss. At this point, I like to use an open communication format like the circle to enable the group to brainstorm around the topic. I generally ask the person who wrote the sticky to start and describe what was on their mind and the exact reason why they wanted to write the stickies. And then in circle, equal opportunities, balanced conversation, you enable everyone to jump in and continue. And until every member skips, you let the conversation go. What is very important in this moment is that you remember the group that is their responsibility to take notes about what is happening. The worst thing that can happen in a retrospective, in my opinion, is that we discuss something and then, nothing is documented. There is no outcome. There is nothing that remains, black on white. So it's very important that as a facilitator, you tell the people that it's their responsibility to document the insight. Especially at the beginning, you are going to have to remind this a few times before people get a hang. Try to avoid being the only one that takes note, because otherwise the group is going to only think that you are there to do their business. Instead, you really want them to be present, to reflect on what is happening and to take note about what is happening. And here we are, we had a beautiful discussion. People generated some insight. Maybe they generated some action point. And remember, as a facilitator, it's your responsibility to remember the group that coming to an action point is not a need. You don't come into a retrospective because you need to generate an action point. Action point will emerge from great conversation. And you don't want to pressure the team into finding an answer. You want to enable the team to have meaningful discussion. And generally, the solution, the action points, some great outcome will just emerge out of it. Maybe not in the first retrospectives. Just imagine that the group will need to get the pace, get a sense of what is important to talk and how to interact. But very soon, you're going to see some great things coming out. What I think it's incredibly important at this point, after you had a conversation, is to leave a little bit of time. I generally leave 3 to 5 minutes to document the outcome. So what I do is, after the conversation, I ask the people, think of the 3 most important information, the key outcome that you heard or that are in your mind about the session that we just had. And I ask the people to document this in a separate section inside the board so that, you kind of have a summary about the session. And at the same time, if there are action points, I ask them to document this and to decide on their own who can take care of this and take this topic outside. So we want to define a responsible, so we ensure there is a follow-up to the topic. And what is important here is that you create continuity. So I have heard this so many times, and now I am just embedded this into the retrospective. In the next retrospective, I have a small section at the very beginning where I ask the responsible to just go back to the outcome or the action point of the past one and present to the group how the topic has advanced. And I feel like this is creating a great sense of continuity and in making retrospective very valuable for the team. And here we are. This is kind of the end of the cycle. And here I want to share just a few tips that I really feel are important for you as the facilitator. I feel like as a facilitator, we have a very hard job because it's very difficult for us to understand how to keep the conversation on track. So we know that the people are focusing on a specific topic, and it's very easy at times for people to get lost in a tangent. And sometimes this tangent might be interesting and related to the topic, and sometimes they might not. So as a facilitator, you have the responsibility of being very focused and understanding when is the moment to bring people back on track. Don't feel like you are interrupting or making them a disservice. You are making a favor to them. You're helping them to make sure that they focus on what is important. It's going to feel weird maybe the first time when you have to interrupt people, and maybe sometime you are going to also be failing. That's okay. You need to learn how to make sure that people stays on track. And that is difficult, but very important for you as a facilitator. It is not your responsibility to give people solution in this session. That should come very rarely. And if you find that you have some insight that the people is missing, some experience that might be worth sharing, try to do that in the form of leading question. Try to lead the group to reflect on the direction that you think it's valuable to them. But be very wary of providing solution unless you really feel like this is going to be transformative for them. Still, I would try to limit this intervention as much as possible. You really want the team to come up with these ideas on their own rather than you feeding them. You are a coach here and you are not providing solutions. And this is it. This is what I have been learning through several years running retrospective and what works for me. I feel like I have been seeing some great transformation in the teams I've been running them, and I have not seen a single time where retrospective have not been appreciated. So it's a very important tool. Use it with care and use it because it's going to make a difference.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing this experience also from your perspective, because as a very experienced facilitator, I guess it's extremely interesting for me. I still remember retros that you were facilitating for us, for my team in Brighter. So once again, thank you. Listening to you, I think you really said and mentioned most of the things which are important for me during retros. So I guess it was actually a very good guide for anyone who is interested in the topic. I have some additional reflection. So first of all, I want to really emphasize how important it is that someone really facilitates retro and meetings like this, because if you just don't have anyone, any facilitator, it's really hard to just keep everything structured and in order. So even if you are using different structure or different ideas, plans, stuff like this for that, still someone should be responsible for time, for keeping everything in shape. And I think this is important to say. The second thing is I really like start, stop, continue formula. I don't know whether you know it, but it's something with also for me when we can, so during, it's very similar to what you said, but during this time when we are producing some notes about like what we want to talk, we also not only focus on the stuff which is like to be changed, but also about the things that we like, we want to continue, the things that are missing and we want to start it, and the things that we want to stop because we don't like it. And I guess if you are doing this session, you also don't need to like make this rounds with appreciation on the beginning during check-in or something, because you are just saying that, okay, we just mentioned this, that we like some stuff. And what I like about this is other people can better understand what you like, what you dislike. And the same for me, I can understand my team better, seeing like which practices are good for them, because sometimes you are doing something which is good or bad and you don't even know that this influences other people. So this is what I learned, and this is what I like about this technique. And the final one, this is something we talked to each other recently, is I think retrospective is so powerful tool that we should also use it in our personal life, not only in our jobs or stuff like this. Just make some time to reflect on your life, on what you are doing, and then you will get way better results.
Thank you, Maciej. Yeah, you said something that it's very important to me and that they didn't mention. This is just one format of running retrospective. And if you go on the internet and you look for retrospective format, you're going to find countless. Like there are different formats meant to achieve different goals. The one that I propose is the format I like the most to enable the team to self-reflect on how they are working at this given moment and to improve their working condition. But you're totally right. The one you mentioned, start, stop, continue.
Start, stop, continue.
That's good. That's a very good one. And yeah, absolutely about using it in your personal life with your family, with a group of friends with which you're running stuff. That totally makes sense. Thank you so much, Maciej.
Thank you, Enrico, for bringing this topic.
Cheers.
See you next time.
Ciao, Maciej.